Hi, good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Belinda.
This is great to see you. So this morning we will air Woman Empowered series, and this is this series about women and what they do and how they do it. And this morning we will have Laura Scott, who is a motivational speaker, a coach, and she has two areas of expertise that she will talk about today. And we are hosting her to share her passion and to share as well with other women how she was able to live the life of her dream. So welcome again, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So what I would like to do first, it's for you to introduce yourself a little bit to our audience that will watch this video today or later on, and tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do and why you do it.
Great. I would be happy to share that.
Okay, so tell us a little bit, about yourself and what you have, accomplished in the past, few years.
Well, I started out as an entrepreneur in the fashion business, then in the publishing business, and then I moved to coaching, which proved to be a very wise choice for me. I worked with a gentleman who had a coaching practice in Virginia for 8 years. We teamed up. I was the one-on-one coach, and he was the workshop facilitator, and we had a great partnership. And when he was getting ready to retire, I was getting ready to launch another project, which I called the Childless by Choice Project, which is an original research project on couples who have chosen to remain childless. And I did some original qualitative research just to find out kind of what the temperature read was on a lot of the data sets that I had uncovered were really old. They were from the 60s and 70s, and there wasn't a lot of new original data out there. So I decided to do my own research. That led to a book called Two is Enough, A Couple's Guide to Living Childless by Choice, which has done pretty well and is reaching readers all over the world. And also a documentary called The Childless by Choice Project. And that took me about 5 years. And when I was finishing editing the film, I really thought, what's next? What is the next step for me? And the first thing that came to mind was going back to coaching. So I went back to coaching school, got a whole bunch of new certifications, and expanded my toolbox so that I could do a more holistic type of coaching, coaching the whole person, and helping individuals and teams and executives be the people they want to be in leadership as persons, and to help them navigate some of the rough spots, the challenges that we have in life, and make some strategic decisions that were truly aligned with their values, and so that they could really go forward with the big why firmly in place and knowing exactly why they do what they do.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating journey that you went on, because you studied as an entrepreneur, and after that you started to work on a specific project that was really important for you to talk about childlessness and how it impacts lives, and how it impacts people as well, and how it could be a choice, because I think that for a long time we thought that a family was parents and kids, and today a family can be two, and it works really well for some people. And I had conversation lately with one of my clients actually about this, and how it impacted her life to make this decision, because it's something sometimes that it's complicated to explain to people, because we are still living in a society where the family, it's still this vision of two people plus the kids, and she was really happy that I talked about you, and to know that I would interview you to speak a little bit about this part, because it's part of your life. I know that you are turning another chapter to work more on mindfulness leadership, but this is your area of expertise that you have worked on, and I really suggest and recommend people going through this phase of questioning what they want in their life and how they envision their family, to speak with you if they need to. So
Yes, one of the things that I do, regardless if it's about the decision to remain childless or
Mm-hmm.
about any other decision, is to be aware of when you're living in the default, when
Mm-hmm.
you're living in the assumption of the status quo, versus really coming from a place of honoring your true belief systems, your true needs, who you are as a human being. And so the mindfulness piece just kind of falls into that because it's
Oh,
being
yeah.
mindful of who's influencing this decision. Is it my decision, or is it my peer's decision, or is it my partner's decision, or is it my parents' decision? Because in the choice to whether or not to have a child, a lot of influencers come into play. And as a coach, I try to separate that out and say, okay, let's get away from the noise of what should be happening right now
Mm-hmm.
and get into a place of really being true to yourself, to your feelings, to your thoughts, to your belief systems, to your ethics, to your morals, all of that. And clear out the noise and the chatter about what other people think you should do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really huge. And so many people, particularly when it comes to a life-altering decision, like whether or not to have children, you really want to make sure that this is your choice, with, of course, in consideration with your partner. But there's a lot of people out there that are making this choice without partners, too. So
Yes,
that's
definitely.
important to consider as well.
Yes, definitely, and I think that it's a really interesting topic, and it has been fascinating. When we have met over 3 years ago, I thought that it was really an interesting topic, because I think that it touched every person, and most particularly women who today would like to have the choice, and feel that they still don't have it. And I have been seeing that in a lot in my practice as well, when I am speaking with women, and sometimes it's not even the first child. They had the first child when they were 25, and it's about the second child, and how to evaluate if it's the right decision or not. And sometimes it's not an easy task, based on what you have shared earlier regarding the influence of others, the family, the partner, but also everything that it's around us and surround us. So great. So you talk about your book, and I think that this is wonderful piece of work that you have created, with all the data and all the heart that you put into it. And I have really enjoyed it, and I know that you have been poked around from different people to share your wisdom about this topic. So I hope that people reach out to you for that after seeing this video, but also reaching out as well to you, to what you have been going to do in organization more specifically now. So do you want to talk a little bit about how you ended up living the life of your dream, and now being able to even bring all this mindfulness and this wisdom in organization?
I think, for me, it's practice what you preach.
Yes.
It's so much of what I help my clients with, I've done myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I've really had a lot of changes in my life. I've made a lot of strategic decisions, and not all of them have been, perfect. But I've learned that they're perfect in their imperfectness. To really not beat yourself up when you've maybe turned the wrong corner and it's usually, when you think back, it's usually a small span of time where you might have just gone off the path a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But to be forgiving of yourself and to understand that in living in the moment is so important, because I have, even in my departures from my path, I have learned so much about
Mm-hmm.
who I am. And sometimes it's important to experience what you don't want to understand what you do want. And I've had some interesting jobs, and they weren't always fun, and some of them were really challenging. But at the end of the day, I came away from them going, okay, that didn't work. So what's next? And I came away from those experiences with a real clear vision about what I did want.
Mm-hmm.
And as an entrepreneur, I had a lot of control in crafting the right environment in which I could thrive. And that's what I help some of my clients with, is to figure out what environment will they thrive? Not just survive, but thrive. There's a distinction there that we make. And thriving for me is really being very conscious about the choices that you do make about what you do, and to really harness the power of the moment, the now, and being very conscious about the little decisions you make in the second. Because most of what our responses are in anything in life is made by a conscious decision in the now, in the moment. In a fraction of a second, we choose how to respond to any stimuli. And we get to choose what part of our brain to use. So we can choose to use our reptilian brain, the amygdala, which really only has 3 choices, and that is to freeze, fight, or flee.
Yes.
Or we have, in that fraction of a second, the choice to use our neocortex, the more higher evolved brain that allows us to make decisions consciously. Make decisions in the fraction of a second that sort of ask ourselves, okay, how do I want to show up right now? How do I want to respond to this? How do I, maximize the effectiveness of this moment to change what's happening here? And so when we recognize we have that power, when we recognize we have that opportunity, and we are mindful about the power of the now, mastering the moment is what I call it. When you master the moment, it's amazing what you can do. And you do it with full responsibility of choosing. And when you do that, you're living really a life of no regrets. Because how can you regret something that you consciously chose? So that's kind of where we go with that. And this can happen in an organization. This can happen with an individual. So as long as we're aware that we're choosing every moment how our life unfolds, we can then master that, and we can take responsibility for that, and we can create miracles within that space of engagement. And engagement's the big thing right now organizationally. It's just getting everybody as a team to understand that they're working towards a common goal, to understand what their place in the organization is and how they create meaning and how they make a difference in their organization. If they have an awareness of that, everything unfolds from there. Productivity improves, engagement improves, employee retention improves. It all unfolds from that magic moment of being very conscious decision makers and recognizing the value that you bring to an organization and the value you bring to your family and your friendships and your tribes, and just the small moments that make a difference in the world.
Yes, definitely, and this is what we have shared with the different previous guests that we had. It's about choice. At some point you have to be conscious about what you want and what you do, and to be able to do that, you have to sit back a little bit and to just think about how you want respond to different events. And I know that we have been sharing different tools. I know you work with similar tools that I do, plus other regarding conflict management and other things with organization, and it has been really interesting to see how it unfolds really quickly just by making this decision, and just by just being aware that we have this power, and getting this back give tremendous opportunity, not only for individuals but for organization, for communities, for society, and for the world at large. This is really what it is about. At some point it's bringing this world to be at peace finally, and be able to make the decision that will help everybody to strive in this world that has been complicated, that has been chaotic, but I think that it has been a blessing actually to be able to live this at this time where a lot of things are changing, and where awareness it's getting bigger about what we want to do and the power that we have. I think that we are in a transition where we had the power of the machine, because we have all this industrial world, the power of intelligence, and now it's about the power of consciousness. And this is the icing on the cake. It's how you put everything finally together and get to a level of true humanity a true purpose, and not only about only doing and creating things, but it's about how do you interact and interconnect with others, and how do you help organizations, societies, and everybody to be able to grow. So this is a fascinating time, I think, that we are living.
It is, and I see more and more organizations, looking for that, because they understand that when you create a workplace where people feel that they're making a difference, that they're doing meaningful work, that the payoffs are huge for that.
Yes.
And it's once they see that happening in their workplace and they exploit that opportunity, it's incredible how that unfolds. And particularly in conflict management, I'm finding that is a really great way to, because one of the things that we found through studies and in my work is that if you let the conflict escalate to a certain point, there's a point of no return where there's really very little options left. But if you catch conflict early, at the early stages before it really ramps up, if you're aware of kind of just the first little triggers out there, and then you sort of address it early, you can, really prevent a lot of angst and really
Yes.
prevent a lot. I mean, if you really saw the cost of conflict in an organization, you'd be floored how expensive conflict can be, and you can lose really top talent if you don't address it early. And being mindful, being aware is part of that, tripwire system that you can establish in an organization where you can catch conflict early before it explodes into something that's more and more difficult to control and manage. And I think that's very key, and that's coming from conscious awareness. It's coming from creating spaces in which people can voice dissent or offer opinions where they're being welcomed and honored, and where the frontline employees have some say in how policy is made or procedures are created, and sort of really all ties in to just being very aware of the value of the human being as really the main resource in our business today. Because as you know, there are businesses out there that if it weren't for human capital, would not exist.
Oh yes.
There is no assets outside of a couple of people in a room with a laptop. So this is the nature of our society and our culture and our economy right now. That the biggest asset we have is the human asset, the human capital. So whatever it takes to get that human capital engaged and motivated and working towards a common goal, whether it's how to build a tribe within your organization, a tribe that supports each other and values what everybody brings to the table. This is a corporate culture that supports the new economy. So that's what we're trying to create with the tools that we have and with our coaching expertise and with the wonderful skills that we can build very simply. Because when I talk about mindfulness, people get all, that's meditation, isn't it? And I go, no, not really, because I practice mindfulness every day, but I do not sit on a mat for 15 or 20 minutes. I don't have time. I practice mindfulness in my car, in the elevator, when I'm walking in the morning, anytime in the shower, I practice mindfulness, and as I go to sleep at night. So there's a little pause points you can take during the day that allow you to integrate this practice very simply, and it's just as powerful. I'm not going to be sitting on a mat in a cave somewhere. Nobody lives in a cave anymore. Sometimes we would like to live in a cave, but
sometimes
it's not always an option.
Yes.
But that's how mindfulness plays out, and corporations, organizations are learning how to utilize that skill and that practice.
Yes, and that's totally true. I have been seeing that a lot with my own clients and corporation that I'm working with, where they are actually asking for it. And this is, really something that we don't have, to share anymore with them. It's that they assume that it's something that it's coming, with the package, because something they want, to do things, differently, and to be able to bring their employees' engagement to a level that it's satisfactory, not only for the organization but also for the customers. And there is, really a shift about how to make, profit. It's making, profit in a sense that will, have, purpose, and what do we do with that? And it's not only profit for profit. So let me ask you something about what you have, seen about, conflict. You were, talking about, conflict and how to detect conflict. And I have, found, because I work a lot, with women, that conflict with women, it's sometimes, difficult, to detect in some organization at top levels, because they refrain this way of expressing. They are, they have, a tendency to close up more than anything else. And how, do you deal, with that, and how, do you detect, and how you can, help with that?
I think a lot of times, and this is not just true of women, but I see this a lot with women, but and also men, is the tendency to avoid conflict. Avoidance is a big thing, and to be aware of how you avoid conflict, and what that looks like for you. So it could be sort of passive aggressiveness. It could play out that way. It could play out in just feeling a high level of stress in times of conflict, where you go into that, again, that reptile brain, that amygdala, where when you feel the fear around conflict, you're going to go there naturally. That's the default. And be aware when you do, so that you can shift out of that and create a core belief where conflict isn't so scary. Because conflict is natural. Conflict is actually a great motivator for productivity, for innovation. Most people, they think about conflict in a bad way, but every time a company releases a new product, there's going to be conflict, because there's a struggle between the old product that's being replaced and the new product. And you've got the people who are still, I mean, and I know, we've got electronics and computers and laptops and phones in our home. We go, like, I'm still mourning the death of Palm, my Palm Pilot. It's like, oh, why did you have to go away? And I still love you. So yeah, there's lots of conflict is just natural. If we assume that there's going to be conflict, we embrace it, and we make space for people to offer, opinions that may not be, welcome sometimes, because I think that's one of the things that we don't. We can't have this little cozy little circle and singing Kumbaya all the time, because if we were, we wouldn't be innovators. We wouldn't be challenging the status quo, and we really wouldn't allow our companies and our product lines to grow. So it's not. If we feel comfortable in this space of constant change, if we feel comfortable in this space of being resilient and going forward, and that forward momentum where we won't get a lot of time to spend, sitting on our laurels, reaping in the products of, the profits of one-star product. If that was true, Apple would still be resting on the laurels of iPod or whatever. It wouldn't work. We're going to be in a constant space of change and challenging the status quo if we're going to be successful. So we just have to get used to that, and used to the space of that, and not make it feel so scary, because it's not scary if you create the culture that this is what we do. This is what we do, and we do it well.
Good. Thank you very much, for sharing, all of this, regarding, mindfulness and conflict, management. And I know that we could have, an entire, conversation about, this. And I wanted, to have, some of your insight, because I think that it's important for our audience to know that this exists, and that there is, other, way to handle engagement. I know that I have, seen a lot of organizations prior, to hire, me, or hire, coaches in the organizations. They were, doing consulting, where they were, just bringing a package and saying, this is how you have to do it. And It was more about, bringing something external instead of to try to change, what was internally dysfunctional, and it works a lot, better now. So let's, go back to women, and I would like, you to share maybe 2 or 3 things that makes you a successful, woman. What kind of tips could you share, with our women, leaders that will, watch this video, and even, men that wants to assess the other, women and empower them as well to become the leader that they deserve to be?
I think for me, what women bring to the table is a lot of soft skills that we used to hide those soft skills back in the day when we were trying to be men in the workplace. But now we have to recognize how things like resiliency, being humble, being vulnerable, being open, being supportive, how that enhances our leadership as women, and also our intuitiveness, and being able to really embrace that. Also, women tend to think, okay, how is this decision going to impact not only myself but everybody in the room? We seem to have a better way to tune into how does our decision making impact not only myself but everyone in the organization, including our clients and our customers. And so it's kind of, a more holistic approach of looking at things as a whole versus just, the implication of a decision on a balance sheet or whatever. So I think that's a real important skill for me as a woman. Once I realized that I had a full range of choices of what I was able to do, and I took responsibility for those choices, I felt incredibly liberated, and that allowed me to tolerate risk extremely well, as long as I managed the downside. And women are really good about managing the downside. We will take huge risks if we know that our children are going to be fed, that we won't lose our home. Women entrepreneurs are actually a better risk for loan officers because bankers understand this. If they get a new client for a business loan, and it's a woman, and she brings a really strong business plan and a real clear plan for how she's going to utilize that operating capital or that operating loan, I as a banker, I would bet on that for sure. I mean, we've seen that play out. So what I've done as a woman is I've really embraced risk with managing the downside. I've also trusted my gut, sort of trusted my instinct a lot, and really used some of my soft skills to really engage with people, and I've really exploited those soft skills. One of them is being a good listener. I'm a great listener, and I really see the big picture, and I understand all the nuances. I can go into a room and I can take a temperature read of a room, and I'm pretty accurate. I'm a good judge of character. So these are all things that I have, not just as a woman, but as a human being, what I bring to the table. And I really want to own those gifts, and I want to say, this is me, this is who I am, and this is what I bring to the table, and really I gotta stand up and be proud about that, and proud of what you bring to the table, and really be very clear about what you want. I think women have a tendency not to express their wants, or they couch them in an apology, which I don't think is appropriate. I think it's, if you have a desire, if you have a strong opinion about something, voice it, because your voice is your gift. And if you don't stand up and be proud or voice your opinion or voice what you want, then you're not really engaging in a way that's going to benefit you or the organization. So just own your voice, own who you are, and be very clear about what you deliver in an organization. And put a value on that, because I think that's another mistake women make, is we undervalue our services. And we don't, and this is why we have a pay equity issue. This is why we have a gender gap in our salaries, and so it's up to us to step up and say, you know, I deserve that. This is
Mhm.
what I bring to the table. This is what I deliver. Be very clear.
Yeah, this is a great, yeah, to be able, to share that with, those women. Soft skills have been, hidden, for many years from corporation, and today this is a shift to embrace this, and that's true that we have, uh, these, skills are already something that we don't have to learn. It's something that we have just, hidden, and we just need, to nurture them and to voice them, like you said earlier, to be able to bring something different to the table. I think that we are in an era in organization that require to have more creativity, more innovation, and if we follow, our guts, and if we are able, to use, soft skills and to listen instead of to think only about the end goal and to see a broader picture, we can bring something really different to the table. It has been proven, and we have seen a lot of women now are reaching the top and being praised for the work that they are delivering, not only in a sense of bottom line, but what they bring as inspiration, as a new ways, to face the corporate, world for women, and this is, really, really, the main thing that I'm, working on with my client. Actually, it's how do you voice and express what you want and you desire, and why is that, important not only for you but for the organization, it's for the community, and for different reason. And that's true that for a long, long time, women, were fighting, and I think that they had, fought a lot for us to be at this level today. And some of them are still, feeling that they have, to fight and to resist. I think that we can, bring, something different. I don't know if we want, to play on the same ground than men. We are bringing something different. And like, you said earlier regarding, pay equality, I think that we are, as women in general, blaming the system, but I think it's the system. We are part of it today, and if we are not, from the inside trying, to change how we ask for a raise, how we embrace, our career vision, how we embrace as well, the fact that we will make, decision in our personal life that will lead us or not to go where we want to be. I think that this is, the most, critical thing, and this is what will change equal pay in gender as well. It's for us, to take responsibility and not, wait for men, because I don't think that the issue is about, men today. I think it's about society, working, together, and women saying, this is, what I want, because this is what I bring and how I bring it. And recognizing, what they have been accomplishing on a daily basis. For women, it's really complicated. For them, it's normal. It's like, yeah, I do my job, but you have also, to see what you bring, to an organization. And if you work, with different, people in your organization, this is, really important, for you to bring that up.
Yeah, and take credit for your work, and really do take credit for your work, because if you don't, someone else will.
Yes, definitely, and it doesn't, serve you. It doesn't, serve the organization, and you will, lose your level of engagement if you are not able to express who you are, what you want, what you desire. And this is what I have been, seeing with some of my clients that now are, really thriving, but that start at some point questioning and saying, yeah, who am I and what I am, doing in this organization. And when they start, to ask, the question, this is where we can, facilitate, the shift, and have them, to understand that they have, the superpower, and this is, the power of changing the culture in organization, and working, with men closely to bring, something, different, and to make this, society a better, society. And not a better in a sense of judgment, but better just because we all, feel, much better when we love our job, when we feel, valued, where we are able, to express what we want, when we are able, to reach our goals, because this is, really critical for all of us, women or men. We want to reach our goals at some point.
Yes, we spend so much time in our work, in our workplaces, and if we don't find some fulfillment from that. Shame on us, because we do devote so much of our waking life to work. And if you become intentional about it, about how you want to contribute, and where your gifts are, and how they might be expressed in the workplace and at home or wherever, then you wake up with a little bit more purpose. You wake up with a little bit more motivation, and you embrace change and innovation because you can handle it. You know whatever comes your way. With the skills that you have, you can handle whatever comes your way. And having that, security of knowing, I can do this, I can manage this, is incredibly empowering. And it's great benefit to the organization when you have people in an organization who have that mindset, who have that belief that yes, we can handle it, whatever, just bring it on. We have the skills, and we have the resiliency, and we have the motivation, and we have the processes by which we can lead in this culture of change. We can lead, and we can offer product and services that are going to be leading edge, and wherever this takes us, we'll be there.
Yeah, definitely. I totally, agree, with that. So I have, one question that I'm always asking my guest, and it is a little bit, provocative, but it's about, women and women, thinking that they have, to fight. What is your opinion about this today in our society, and what kind of fight should they, go after? And if you think that they don't have to fight, what would be your advice or your wisdom about how women can succeed in this society?
I don't know that we have to fight. I think we have to just be. Fight. I go back to that old saying. What you resist persists.
Yes.
I have this saying I use. It's a mindfulness saying that I use with my clients. Do you want to be the stone in the river? Do you want to be the water that flows around it? And that gets us in a mindset of flow. It's like women are fighting for the right to be mothers in the workplace. Women are fighting for flex time, or fighting. And I really do believe that women can have it all, provided that they clearly define what all is. Because not everyone wants to be superwoman. Not everyone wants to have a full-time career and raise a family at the same time. Because I think you can have it all, but you might not have to have it sequentially. And one of the reasons I chose not to have children is I didn't think I could have the career that I wanted and be the mother that I wanted and claim success at both at the same time. I think I kind of could have probably done it sequentially, and I would have been fine. And it doesn't work for every woman, And in fact, for some women, this idea of the superwoman raising a family and having a full-time career is really a recipe for disaster and unhappiness because of the toll it takes, the stress, the toll of just feeling like you're having to compromise every which way, and that. For me, as a perfectionist, recovering perfectionist, that didn't work for me. So that's one of the reasons I wrote Two is Enough, because I wanted to acknowledge this huge emerging demographic, women and men who by conscious choice, remain childless, because that's the best way to honor who they are as human beings. So they sort of stepped out of the vortex of the default assumption that they should be a mom or a dad, or we should be parents, and into a space of contemplation, of a discernment, and honoring who they are as human beings. So that's kind of the same decision-making process that I encourage everybody to use. To really be clear about what they had to offer and what would make them happy, and what they have to contribute. And that kind of thing. So, it is possible to have what you want, but you have to really define, number one, what you want, and how do you define success? Because everybody's definition of success is really different. And having a clear vision of what does success mean to me, and it might be very different from one person to another. And if you honor that definition of success, and you give yourself the space to achieve that success, and do it in a way where you're not harming the human capital, which is yourself. If you're not burning out and getting stressed and being, being to the point where you're just I'll call them zombie workers, because you're just, when you're living the default, you're living unconsciously. It's almost like you're a zombie, and you really are not fully engaged from the moment to moment possibilities that they're out there for you.
Yeah, and I have shared that last week actually I have hosted a power breakfast with women, and we were talking about all these women in the arena, and how they were all thinking that to have it all was to be the best at everything,
Right.
and to define success based on being the best at everything. It's putting yourself for failure. It's about choice, about like you said, sequences in your life. We have 90 years, maybe sometimes 100 years to live, and there is
Beautiful.
sometimes space for everything, and we can make ourselves aware that we don't have to be the superwoman at all time. This is, we decide to go to college, to have a career, to have kids or not to have kids, and to go back to work if we did have kids, or we choose to have kids at a really young age and decide to do it later. And I think it's about success, like you said. A lot of people are defining success based on standards that they have taken from here and there, and they don't even question the fact that it's maybe not what they want. They say that I have to fit in this box because it's what it's expecting from me, and I say, yeah, but what do you want? And when you ask them this question, it's sometimes really difficult. I'm working with women between 35 and 55 years old, and most of the times they have been in default mode, zombie mode, for many years, and they don't even know what they desire anymore. They say, I don't know, I feel that I am successful, and they are successful, but they say there is something that is missing, and the missing part, it's them, because actually they have positioned themselves outside of their own world, and they are living different lives and different roles to be able to please other people most of the time, and to do what is expected, and they play really well by the book, and that's why they are so successful. But at some point they just realize that they are only this woman in disguise, and they don't even know who they are, and this is really critical. And we go through this discovery of what is success on your own terms, and what does that mean.
Yeah, you have to write your own book on leadership and life. Everyone has a book in them. It's the book of your life. It's the way, how do I want to lead? How do I want to be? What does parenthood look like to me? I have a number of clients and friends who created their own model of parenthood that is maybe not the standard or the approved model, and I'm sure on the mummy blogging sites they would be considered bad parents, but and one of them said, hey, I have free-range children, they get kicked out of the house and they run around the forest and they come back at dinner time, much like I was raised, and I did turn out okay. But yeah, it's like defining your success against somebody else's model doesn't work, because you're always going to fall short, because it's not your model, it's somebody else's model.
Yes.
And being clear about writing your own book and creating your own model for success, and what that, how that, and be conscious that and aware that you can be the parent you want to be. It doesn't have to be whatever the Cosby family or parenthood. It's because we've seen all kinds of models on sitcoms. Most of them are designed to be comedic. They're not real life. But yeah, it's, so you can just choose how you want to parent. And I always, every time I come across a mother, father who's raised a child to 21, I congratulate them. I mean, I just think that's amazing. You navigated 21 years of parenthood. Pat yourself on the back, congratulate yourself, crack a bottle of champagne. It's time to celebrate. And that's where we don't sometimes as women we don't give ourselves time to celebrate the small successes. We maybe celebrated graduation, but really every day is a reason to celebrate. If we get through the day and we feel like we've made a difference in our child's life or in a life of our life or in our organization's goals, we need to congratulate ourselves, because we need to remind ourselves of what we bring, what we deliver, and how we make meaning of every moment in our lives.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I could not, say it, better. I think that, it's really how you are able, to realize and to gain, confidence in yourself as well, that you are making, the right decision every single day, and you don't, question yourself anymore when you are able, to just, celebrate those small moments, because you realize that you are existing, living, and you are being, and this is, what, matter the most.
Right,
So,
absolutely.
we have been, together for almost, an hour, and I could, stay, forever. And this has been, really great, conversation. What I would like, you maybe, to give us, it's, your last, thought about, the topic about, women success and women, leadership in our society and around the world as well, and also give us your next event or next, release, and tell us, what you are up to.
Well, my parting thought is that, to succeed takes some effort, but it doesn't take work. It shouldn't feel like torture. It shouldn't feel like pushing a huge boulder up a mountain kind of thing. And to just honor who you are and express success through your gifts. And really, that's one of the things that I'm trying to do with my mindfulness. One of the things I'm thinking about, as I outline a book on mindfulness, and as I'm creating a retreat for mindfulness, is how do I bring that into my daily practice? And one of the reasons is questions that you ask yourself, and the question that I ask myself at least a couple of times a day is, who do I want to be right now? How do I want to show up? That to me is really important. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm working on right now, is creating a series of questions, which I will include in my book, that are in the moment questions that you can ask yourself to put you into that mindset of success, to put you in the mindset of working exclusively in the more evolved part of our brain, so that we can be conscious decision makers at every moment, and we can really claim success, the success that we deserve and that we really are entitled to. I think we are all entitled to a successful and happy life, but we have to claim it. It's not something that just falls into our lap. It's something that we have to do consciously. And so that's what I'm working on right now, is just coming up with all of the tools and the questions and the processes by which we can do this in our own lives, but also in corporate environments where it becomes integrated into the culture. So that's exciting.
Wow, that's exciting, and I'm, really looking, forward, to have you again here to talk about, this fabulous, book that you are, writing now, as soon as it's done, and I hope that I will be able to get, some insight a little bit, before everybody, and we'll, talk about this. It was really a pleasure to have you, Laura, today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation. Enjoyed talking with you, Belinda, and thank you for creating such a great space for this conversation.
Yes, this is, wonderful. And so this was, Laura Scott and Belinda Brown with Equanimity Executive. And I hope that you enjoyed our time together. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you, Laura. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Take care. Went, on because you studied, as an entrepreneur, and after that, you started, to work on a specific, project that was really important, for you to talk about childlessness and how it impacts, lives, and how, it impacts, people as well, and how it could be a choice, because I think that for a long time we thought that a family was parents and kids, and today a family can be two, and it works, really well for some people. And I had, conversation, lately with one of my clients actually about, this and how it impacted, her life to make, this decision, because it's something sometimes that it's complicated to explain to people, because we are still living in a society where the family, it's still, this vision of two people plus the kids. And she was, really happy that I talked about you, and to know that I would, interview you to speak a little bit about this part, because it's part of your life. I know that you are, turning another chapter to work more on mindfulness leadership, but this is, your area of expertise that you have, worked on, and I really suggest and recommend, people going through this phase of questioning what they want in their life and how they envision, their family, to speak with you if they need to. So.
Yes, one of the things that I do, regardless if it's about the decision to remain childless or about any other decision, is to be aware of when you're living in the default, when you're living in the assumption of the status quo, versus really coming from a place where I was getting ready to launch another project, which I called the Childless by Choice Project, which is original research project on couples who have chosen to remain childless. And I did some original qualitative research just to find out kind of what the temperature read was on a lot of the data sets that I had uncovered were really old. They were from the 60s and 70s, and there wasn't a lot of new original data out there. So I decided to do my own research. That led to a book called Two is Enough, A Couple's Guide to Living Childless by Choice, which has done pretty well and is reaching readers all over the world, and also a documentary called The Childless by Choice Project. And that took me about 5 years, and when I was finishing editing the film, I really thought, what's next? What is the next step for me? And the first thing that came to mind was going back to coaching. So I went back to coaching school, got a whole bunch of new certifications, and expanded my toolbox so that I could do a more holistic type of coaching, coaching the whole person, and helping individuals and teams and executives be the people they want to be in leadership as persons, and to help them navigate some of the rough spots, the challenges that we have in life, and make some strategic decisions that were truly aligned with their values, and so that they could really go forward with the big why firmly in place, and knowing exactly why they do what they do.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating journey that you went. Hi, good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Belinda.
This is, great, to see you. So this morning, we will air Woman Empowered series, and this is, this series about, women and what they do and how they do it. And this morning we will have, Laura Scott, who is a motivational speaker, a coach, and she has, two areas of expertise that she will, talk about today. And we are hosting her to share her passion, and to share as well with other women how she was able, to live the life of her dream. So welcome again, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So what I would like, to do first, it's for you to introduce, yourself a little bit to our audience that will, watch this video today or later on, and tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do and why you do it.
Great. I would be happy to share that.
Okay, so tell us a little bit, about, yourself and what you have, accomplished in the past, few years.
Well, I started out as an entrepreneur in the fashion business, then in the publishing business, and then I moved to coaching, which proved to be a very wise choice for me. I did worked with a gentleman who had a coaching practice in Virginia for 8 years. We teamed up. I was the one-on-one coach, and he was the workshop facilitator, and we had a great partnership. And when he was getting ready to retire,
first child, they had the first child when they were, 25, and it's about, the second child and how to evaluate if it's, the right, decision or not. And sometimes it's not an easy task based on what you have shared earlier regarding the influence of others, the family, the partner, but also everything that it's around us and surround us. So great. So you talk about your book, and I think that this is wonderful piece of work that you have created with all the data and all the heart that you put into it, and I have really enjoyed it, and I know that you have been poked around from different people to share your wisdom about this topic. So I hope that people reach out to you for that after seeing this video, but also reaching out as well to you to what you have been going to do in organization more specifically now. So do you want to talk a little bit about how you ended up living the life of your dream and now being able to even bring all this mindfulness and this wisdom in organization?
I think, for me, it's practice what you preach.
Yes.
It's so much of what I help my clients with, I've done myself, and I've really had a lot of changes in my life. I've made a lot of strategic decisions, and not all of them have been, perfect. But I've learned that they're perfect in their imperfectness, of honoring your true belief systems, your true needs, who you are as a human being. And so the mindfulness piece just kind of falls into that, because it's being mindful of who's influencing this decision. Is it my decision, or is it my peer's decision, or is it my partner's decision, or is it my parents' decision? Because in the choice to whether or not to have a child, a lot of influencers come into play. And as a coach, I try to separate that out and say, okay, let's get away from the noise of what should be happening right now, and get into a place of really being true to yourself, to your feelings, to your thoughts, to your belief systems, to your ethics, to your morals, all of that. And clear out the noise and the chatter about what other people think you should do, because that's really huge. And so many people, particularly when it comes to a life-altering decision, like whether or not to have children, you really want to make sure that this is your choice, with, of course, in consideration with your partner. But there's a lot of people out there that are making this choice without partners too. So
yes, definitely.
That's important to consider as well.
Yes, definitely, and I think that it's a really interesting topic, and it has been fascinating. When we have met over 3 years ago, I thought that it was really an interesting topic, because I think that it touched every person, and most particularly women who today would like to have the choice and feel that they still don't have it. And I have been seeing that in a lot in my practice as well, when I am speaking with women, and sometimes it's not even